Speaker, members of this House, I have 4 pieces of advice for our opponents today. Firstly, that Hafiz will always have a job with the Malaysian Coast Guard as long as they need foghorns. Secondly, that Hazib shouldn't try humour again, like he really did today, primarily because he's just not funny. Thirdly, that Mother Hubbard and Dr. Chandran really should stick to cloning bananas and opening for us in biotech debates. And I would also like to add that, Juliana, 3 months ago, I gave birth to triplets. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that Team Beauty and the Beast will be very happy to come back and wipe the floor with your sorry asses again next year. Ass is a perfectly acceptable word, by the way. The case on the opposition bench reminds me of a padded bra on an apparently well-endowed lady. It promised much, but on first touch was instantly and forever disappointing. Madam Speaker, I have basically only got to focus on 2 things. Not that anything really happened on that side, but I've got to find something to talk about. So I'm going to talk about responsibility. No. Wasting your time. I'm going to talk about responsibility first of all, and then I'm going to talk about this strange thing that came up in the extension, quote unquote,
before that,
on the opposition bench. No, not even after that. On the opposition bench in terms of the role of women. Hafiz, it is a debate about what would have happened if your mother had chosen not to have you. Hafiz, by the way, I must explain what a paradox is to you sometime. It is a debate about who is responsible for the decision to abort. Opening opposition would stick with an outdated and impractical principle. They would leave the entire burden upon the female and keep the male isolated and remote from any possible share in that burden. Sit down. There are 3 possible instances that we have talked about clearly, consistently on the government bench. 1, a woman wants to abort an unwanted pregnancy and the father vanishes in the midst of their prevarication. 2, a woman wants to abort, the husband is happy to have that happen because he's required to give his consent by law, and he must continue to be involved and support the woman. 3, a woman wants to abort, the husband refuses to consent, and he then takes full responsibility for both raising the child and supporting the mother postpartum. Those are the 3 instances, Madam Speaker, and we would ask, what is wrong with forcing the father into a position where he has to take a fair share of responsibility? What is your response? Is condoms. Amazing. You Hafiz, you could wear a full body condom and it would still be not enough. What is wrong, we ask, what is wrong with forcing the father of the unborn child to take responsibility for the decision-making process? That's a very simple question. Society, has thus far condoned the actions of men by allowing them to do far too much thinking with their smaller head and walk away from all responsibility. Yes?
Omar, none of you still answer this question. When the woman doesn't want to have the baby and the father forces her to, then it reaches an end of...
You weren't listening. Item 3 was, if the woman doesn't want to have the baby and the father does want to have the baby, because he is forced to give his consent by law, he then becomes entirely responsible for both the child and the postpartum protection and support of the woman. I'm surprised that you do not understand. Perhaps I should use smaller words next time. We say we say, no more. You play, you pay. Men must be held responsible for their actions. And my partner has given you an extensive analysis on how that responsibility would then be engendered. Men would have to think before they went to bed with a woman. They would have to think about the consequences of their actions, because they then become responsible for them. We see nothing whatsoever wrong with that. Society has allowed men to get away with things far too long. Men like him.
You have to tell us now, explain to us your counter proposal on this common law marriage. If a guy has sex and runs off to Sweden, is the marriage still on?
Answer, yes. In terms of he's got to sign a form of consent. If the guy runs away, he's got to sign consent. If he does not sign anything, if the guy completely vanishes off the face of the earth, then obviously it becomes the woman's prerogative to do what she wishes to do. You know, it's only common sense, but then I suppose you don't have an awful lot. Obviously a rare commodity on the opposition bench. Now let's get down to what happened in terms of the role of women, because this was really strange. Basically, we had a summary at somewhere after the 5th minute. We had a summary of Juliana's own experience as a first-time mother. As far as postpartum depression is concerned, Juliana, I would advise, I think you probably suffered enough from the opening on your own bench. I trust you. I've got some good drugs, they'll get you over that. Look, it's very simple. It is well and good. It's well and good. You know, you basically talked in opening about putting the entire burden on the woman. This kind of bodily autonomy thing. That just will not work. We want the man to take responsibility. We want men to be responsible, and we want society to change in that respect. And change now.